Elsa. Thank you for this opportunity, first of all. I started my journey, was born in West Bengal, but my parents, my father was an engineer. My parents are first generation graduates from our entire family, right? So, I mean, we come from a very backward village in West Bengal. And, my father, I think, he just decided to break the barriers and move out and, become an engineer in those times. And very early on, actually, my father, with his job, we went to Venezuela. And that is where I was, as a very young child. Actually, to step back a little bit more, to give you a history from, the kind of people I come from. So my mom, she had me, when she was very young. And like in those days, I mean, she had me when she was barely 20. And she wanted to, complete her master's. That was something that was driving her more than having a baby. So she actually kept me with my grandmom. And, I stayed with my grandma till I was almost 2.5. So my, very early years, I was with my grandparents. And, because she just had to finish her master's. I mean, that was non-negotiable in that sense, right? But after that, my parents got married, and then we went to Venezuela. And from Venezuela, we went to the US. So we were in Philadelphia and we were in New Jersey. And when the whole world, was moving to the US in late 70s, early 80s, my parents decided that, because of my grandparents, they would come back to India. And that's when I came back to India when I was in 4th grade, and I came back to Calcutta. And that is where I, did my education from. And I then finally, I was always a good student. My mother made it very clear to me that studies is your only passport, because we came from a very middle class family, as you can understand, the roots, and very, very middle class, and, all the things that middle class families did at that point in time. And education was seen as something that would, power us ahead. And I completely took that to heart, so to say. So I was the head girl of our school as well. And school was a fantastic journey, but it was a little difficult because, I came back from the US, and now we have everything globalized and everything, right? But I came back from the US with an accent, and it wasn't an accent I was putting on. It was a very natural thing, but I was teased to death, right? And they thought, but they didn't know that, I had only 2 dresses, essentially, that, I would literally wear for the whole year. And, when our Durga Puja came, that is when we would get like new dresses, right? And so the whole thing, it wasn't just because we came back from the US, we were it wasn't like that at all. My father was an engineer. He was just a very hardworking engineer. So anyway, so, I would make studies a focus, do everything in school. And like I said, I was the head girl. And, then I made it through the West Bengal joint entrance examination. And lo behold, I actually made it, in the first 100 out of, as you know, millions of students in the joint entrance examination. And I really couldn't believe it. So for me, it's like, okay, when you put in hard work, you do get something back. And so I joined electronics engineering in Jadavpur University. So that's where I did my graduation from. Straight out of college, I came to Bangalore for work. I actually, off campus, I got selected for Texas Instruments, which for any electronic engineer, it's a dream come true, and that was, I think, what changed my, whole outlook, my career, everything. I mean, that break was something that, and just a small anecdote here is, honestly speaking, what I really wanted to do, what drove me was to do something for people. So I actually always wanted to become a doctor. And, there were certain things that happened, and I think the rebellious teen years or whatever. And I was like, no, I have to get out of home, sooner. And my whole path changed. And even though my mom really wanted me to become an engineer. Like I would be the first woman engineer from the entire family. I was the second generation graduate anyway, right? But she really wanted me to become an engineer. And so I took that path, but it was, my college years were not really the best. It was not, I kind of realized that this is not something that I'm really enjoying, as such. But I think it's our generation, or, you can say that, I mean, to be very honest, I didn't have the guts to say that, okay, I'm not going to do this and I'm going to do something else. You chose something, you made it work, right? You gave it your best and you just kind of made it work. So that's what I did. And I got through Texas Instruments as well. And I came to Bangalore, but absolutely alone for someone who's, so I never stayed in hostel because my college was just 10 minutes away, from our house. So it was absolutely, alone, a different city, and, setting up stuff on your own. And I started off my career, and because, it was new, all that focus of school and college, honestly speaking, in my first year at Texas Instruments, I actually didn't do too well, right? I was, bottom of the list and a bottom performer. And then I kind of realized that what the hell, what's happening, and I need to buckle up. And I think since then, it was, so I've always been paranoid, about giving it my best and then, seeing what happens and trying to succeed. So since then, I guess there was no turning back. That first year was really, really bad. And I was just trying to find my ways, trying to stay alone, so many things, right? As a woman in a completely new city we didn't have too many relatives, or we didn't have anybody else in that city, so to say. So then in TI, I had a great journey. It was completely, a technical role. We were working on absolutely leading edge technology stuff. And slowly I took on the manager role of the team that I was in. And then in TI, there were a lot of things, after a while, I kind of became a person that would fight fires, right? So it was when we had a lot of chips failing in the 65 nanometer technology, when things were absolutely crazy, and I was brought into the new team for that SRAM design to kind of fix things, in the flow. And my God, those couple of years, I barely slept. I mean, we were literally in the office all the time. Right. So, I still remember sleeping under the cubicle desk, through the night. We just fire some runs and, get probably 2 hours sleep and then get up again. And because there were customers, breathing down our necks on, how do we fix these issues? What do we do? So that was a huge, you can say, character building, experience, so to say. And it was leading a team that was not, whatever, it wasn't my core expertise, but it is something that I picked up. And since then, I've always picked up new things and, kind of delivered on that. So, throughout this, I took on, so we started with standard cells, and then I took on the entire foundation IP piece, right? And after that, I also took on the platform manager role, which was something no one from the India team had ever done. So it was a worldwide role, and I was working with multiple sites in terms of managing that entire technology platform for TI. But when I joined TI, when they interviewed me, one of the questions that they asked me was, where do you see yourself, 10 years from now? And as naive as I was, I actually said that, I'll be running my own company. And, credit to TI that they still hired me, right? But I think they saw the spirit. So it was something that I always knew that I wanted to do, create something of my own. And while we were in this, doing this foundation IP design for TI, I figured out that we were really, the best. And we were really, I felt that we were the best in the industry. But there was no Indian company who had a company who had a company, Indian company, who was really doing this. We were doing this for all the, there were engineers as part of MNCs who was doing this work, but there was no company in India that was actually, doing foundation IP design, which goes into every single electronic chips that you have. Any semiconductor, any VLSI design would use those foundation IPs. So that was something that was kind of, in my mind. And after 15 years in TI, and with two of my co-founders who worked with me in TI, in my teams for a long time, I decided that, it's time now, right? Let's go and build something on our own. And another thing, that I had always was everyone. If you look at it, I have traveled a lot as part of my job. Like I have been to Dallas. I've actually, at one point, I used to travel to Dallas every single month. And at that time, I had a 1.5-year-old baby, and I was still traveling to Dallas every month. It was crazy. I mean, by the time your jet lag sets in, you're back here. And I had a, 1.5-year-old baby who used to fall very ill for, whatever be the reason. So we were either I was in Dallas or I was in the emergency ward in Bangalore. So, that was a crazy period of my life. But I really didn't see that, being in an MNC, where else do you go? Because there was very little power that was given, to the MNCs that were run here. You had to be in headquarters to actually be, a VP or, get somewhere else in life. So I said, okay, just forget all of that. Why don't I create my own company? And I do believe we are the best in the industry. So that's how, that dream was realized into Immense Semiconductors. And so me and my two co-founders, we founded Imensa Semiconductors, and we were doing foundation IP design, which goes into every single design and product that any VLSI design uses. These IPs go into it, and we were credited with actually designing the most high density library. So if you look at it in any chip that goes into a semiconductor, chipset, the more you can pack into it, right? The more functionalities you can have. So designing high density, libraries or IP is of great, it's of great significance, so to say. So we were credited with designing the highest density in the world, the highest density library, that in that 28 nanometer technology. So we worked with a lot of, tier one companies, you name it, whether it was Qualcomm, Samsung, TI itself, and a lot of small companies as well. And, we were picking up and we were doing pretty well. And if you see, like all my friends or all my batchmates, everyone was in the US. The next step was, natural step was go to the US and then set up your career, right? But I think that is something that I believed in, that, I wanted to be here. Like, first of all, I wanted to be close to my parents because they just meant so much to me. My parents, my grandmother, as long as she was alive. And it was just that, why does everyone have to go away? Why can't we be here and, do something? Why can't I hire engineers who otherwise may not have got a chance to work on such leading edge technology and build something out of it? So that is what Imensa was really all about. Unfortunately, though, I would say Mensa didn't take off to be what I really wanted to be. And even though we had a successful run for about 3.5 years, and we made a good presence in the industry, I really wanted to work, with this whole semiconductor ecosystem in India. And I didn't see it going anywhere at that point in time. I think right now with all this Make in India stuff, hopefully things are back. But at that point, it wasn't really happening. So at that point, MediaTek was setting up office in India. It was a Taiwanese company. And again, it was like a startup, if you look at it. It was giving Qualcomm a good run for its money, a new entity, so to say. And they gave us a, they wanted to acquire us. And I said, why not, right? I mean, I think that was a very tough decision because Imensa was like my baby. But, that was something that I learned as well, that, it's better to kind of give it up at a point when you can make everyone successful rather than hold on to it and, kind of not let it go anywhere. So I made sure every single person of my team, I mean, not really me, actually, we distributed the money so that every person in my team, whoever we had hired, was, saw success out of this. That they really felt good that, they came on board with me because they left their jobs and decided to join a crazy startup like this. And I think no one regrets. Not a single person. If you talk to any Mensa person today, I don't think any one of them will say that we regret the journey at all. I think there was immense learning. So then we came into MediaTek, and MediaTek, I started the foundation IP team here, but I also took on the processor design, the CPU design. That was again, it was something completely new for me. But within a couple of years, I was managing the entire thing, and we actually, designed the chips, the processors that went into some of the phones that were, flagship in India. So a lot of the Xiaomi phones that were launched as flagship phones in India, the processors were done by us. And it was a crazy journey because here, you were designing something within 6 months, you have a product in your hand. And that's unheard of, the kind of cycle times that we worked in. And, it has been a crazy learning journey. In addition to that, I was also given responsibility to take on the entire Bangalore site. So, I am also managing the entire MediaTek Bangalore site, and we've made, if you look at, some of the employee engagement scores that were there before I was there and when I was there, I mean, actually this year we had our scores and everything is green, so it really feels good to see that, sometimes, at a point, you don't have people telling you that you're doing a good job, but you have things happening around you which kind of speak for themselves. And I think that's the point where I am right now. So that's where I am, and I'm really looking forward to what next, and how to create something else again on my own. So that's where I am right now, Elsa. Here in TI, you had everything set up for you, just like you said, right? I mean, you didn't have to worry about starting from the laptop or machines that you'll be working on to the software licenses that you'll be using to setting up office space. So it was like a transition to, from doing only your work to doing everything else around your work, including, like, our office. I actually laugh about this, but there was a shutter, the shutter. So it had to be one of the three of us who had the key and who would actually wo dukaan khulna na. So it's like, actually opening that shutter up to open up the office, right? So it was, that, but I think we worked at tremendous speed, tremendous speed. And what really helped is also that even though, even today, if you look at it, there is not a single, and it's very sad, but there's not a single woman entrepreneur in the semiconductor design domain at all, So it's extremely sad, but even then it was even worse, right? So, so I had no godfather, I had no godfather who was looking after me, who made sure I had these contacts, blah, blah, nothing like that at all. But I think I had good relationships with whoever I worked in the industry, right? Whether it was partner EDA company. So I made sure I did not have any bridges that I really burnt. So that came in handy, right? So when I wanted to set up, when we had, we needed EDA licenses to do the work that we were doing, I knew who to contact at least, right? And even though, it's not that they lowered the prices for us at all, to a certain extent, but we were able to set it up. You actually mentioned very right that it takes time to set up, but within, even though it was 3.5 years, there was half a year when we were kind of looking at setting things up, right? So, during that time, we had everything set up within 2-3 months, and we were up and running. So, we were also hiring. So it was a transition. But I think one of the things that helped is I never had any, first of all, I never had any plan B at all. I never thought that what's going to happen if this fails. Though there have been nights after nights when, I have stayed awake thinking, how am I going to pay salary to these guys? Because actually all the people, so I didn't take any salary. My two co-founders, we didn't take anything at all. but I made sure that whoever was joining me, I was giving them close to their market salary. I said that I won't be able to give you a raise after raise, every year and things like that, but I will give you close to your market salary, because why else would they, kind of come in addition to giving stakes in the company, right? So, but yeah, there were sleepless nights, so to say, that when we didn't have enough customers, or when the payment was not coming in, all those kind of things, the typical, the typical problems of a startup. So yeah, I mean, those problems were there, absolutely. And I think in terms of motivation, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems I also had is in terms of being a woman. I never, when you're working in a big corporate company, and especially TI, because it was a technology focused company, I never felt that I was a woman or a man or anything. You do work, you get recognized. Of course, when you have kids and, you have to take off, and that's a little bit that you feel. But in terms of your rating and all, it's pretty okay. Here I was, running a business absolutely on my own. And one of the things that you have to do is you do have to make cold calls, right? I mean, you don't know anybody. You just, you have to pick up the phone, you have to talk to them, you have to say, do you want our business? This is what we have to offer to you. Cold calls was one thing, but the other thing was that, so I traveled to the US a couple of times. And, I visited companies over there without literally not knowing anyone. So there were times when I was in California, and I did have a friend there, but the friend is not going to come with me to all the companies, right? So I was on my own. So I'm just saying simple things of, figuring out transport, you're going to meet completely unknown people, right? And to have that confidence to walk in and meet these guys and say that, this is what we have to offer to you. We're this small company sitting in Bangalore. And, having that, sometimes I look back at them and wonder, like, was I on drugs or something? Because it really felt that way, right? And people were listening. It's not that, everyone was rolling a red carpet for us, but they were listening and they were willing to give us business, right? So I think what kept me going is, out of the 10 rejections that we got, the one time when we were getting that, when we had that new business opportunity, I think I was like, it was literally euphoric in a way, right? I would be on top of the world. And when I could come back and tell my team that, this is what we have, and this is what we are going to do, that excitement of continuously building something is what kept me going, and what I use to motivate all these guys in the team, right? But of course, none of these came. There's a huge, that's why I said, out of the 10 times, there was one time when we were succeeding and 9 times when we were not succeeding as well, right? So yeah, overall, I think, that was the startup journey. But one thing that also helped is, what I wanted to say is, I never had this thought that, okay, doing the work is my only job. I never had a problem that, okay, HR also I have to do. I also have to do finances. I also have to do BD. It was okay. It was learning for me. So I think that spirit or that positive thinking that, yeah, I mean, you've decided to do this. No one has told you to do it, right? So you better just do whatever it takes. And of course, my co-founders, we complemented each other in that sense. So yeah, I think that was my startup journey. Yeah, I think everyone kind of asks me this, that, you went from corporate to startup and then back to corporate. So, how was all these transitions? Like I mentioned, honestly speaking, if you ask me, Mensa didn't turn out to be the kind of big dreams that I had for it, right? I really wanted us to, continue longer. More importantly, I really wanted to get into the Indian ecosystem of semiconductors and see, whether we can make an impact over there. And at that point in time, even though I did try, I did have a couple of meetings and see, whether the fab was being set up, whether we can start doing IPs for them, things didn't really seem to be moving, right? the other option was really to move business to, to the Silicon Valley, so to say. And that is not something that I wanted to do again. I mean, that was something very clear to me. That was, there are so many companies that are said they're small semiconductor or VLSI design companies. And that's not what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to move. I wanted to be here. So, when I weighed all the pros and cons, and since MediaTek was coming in and the environment was like a startup, so to say, because it was a new thing, it was setting up shop here. And of course, I think there was a little bit about, all my co-founders, three of us were probably not completely in sync with what our dreams were with the company. So I think, at that point in time, to be pragmatic and make the best decision that would be the best for most of the people, not everybody, but most of the people. And even if my dream was to continue further and take it through, but I'm not going to be able to do it alone. And that is something that I realized. So, when I weighed the pros and cons of everything, and I cried. I mean, no harm in saying it. I actually cried because it was a very tough thing to do. But on the other hand, I thought that, yeah, I mean, how many people do this, right? You set up a company, you actually sell it within, for a good amount of money that makes everyone who has worked with you, reach a certain level of success in their lives. How many people are able to do it? So why am I looking at this as failure? So my perception of how I looked at things also changed a little, right? And in this sense, I mean, I think you asked me who was advising me, or who was, honestly speaking, when I left TI and when I started Mensa, my parents almost stopped talking to me. They were like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, you're in such a high position. You're so well loved by your company, and you're leaving all of this for what, right? My greatest supporter at that point in time was, as usual, my grandmother. I mean, she was just amazing. She would, like, I would talk to her every day almost, and she was like, "Aaj business aaya, has something new come today, right?" So it's and of course, my parents came around, not like that. I think more than between my mom and my dad, it was my father who was completely okay. He was like, go and do whatever you need to do, right? Just go and do it. If you fail, you fail, like big deal, right? I mean, you can come back to doing something else. I think my mom was coming from a point of what's going to happen, the whole world is going to fall apart if you don't earn, and all those kind of things. But so I didn't really have anyone, that I could take advice from or listen to. I would say my husband is very supportive in the sense that he doesn't say yes or no to anything I do. It's it's like, okay, you've decided, this is your choice, go ahead and do it, right? In fact, even during those years when I was not earning a penny, I had kept my savings aside. I did not take a paisa from anybody, and I still feel so proud of this, that I did not. Because then, even during that time, someone mentioned to me in the passing, for you it must be very easy because your husband is earning a lot. So I was like, so I mean, he's earning, right? But I'm not. So whatever I needed to pay, I had made that plan so that I don't become dependent on anybody. Because then, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that it was easy for you in any way. And if it was so easy for women, why aren't there like 1,000 other women, entrepreneurs doing this, right? I mean, it should be like, wow, it's so easy, go ahead and do it. So in that sense, there were all these kind of comments that you got. So there wasn't really advice, but it was my family, so to say. It was my parents, it was my sister, my sister's husband, my brother-in-law, who really inspired me and helped me, saying that, go ahead and do what you feel is right. So in a sense, I always went with my intuition and what my gut feel. Of course, with all these discussions, but there wasn't any one person who said, go and do this, or, one advisory in that sense. And so far, my gut feel has worked. But yeah, I mean, that's how it's been. So transitioning back into corporate was a little difficult, right? Here whatever you were doing, you were queen of your game. So you didn't really have to ask for permission. And again, you had to come back into this rut of, you have to go through the loops and holes, and you have to ask this person, that person to set these things up. It was very irritating, honestly speaking, at the beginning. But then slowly, you go through the whole thing of establishing yourself. And then, a lot of things, for example, we did for a Taiwanese company, which is very different from a US company, right, in the overall culture. But a lot of things that I was able to do at the site was just because, I had gone through that journey. And honestly speaking, I had nothing to lose. Yeah. At the end of the day, what are they going to say? They're going to say no, right? But if it happens, it's great for the site. So a lot of things that we were able to do for the site, even in terms of the expansion, even in terms of the kind of work we were doing here, I think was magnificent. And that was because, of the resolve to just, that resilience to stay put and not give up. So yeah, that's what it was. So I think the first time it was a leap of faith, totally, like a total leap of faith. And I think the second time, it would still have to be a leap of faith. So I'll share something else. So in, actually this last couple of months, I've been doing this course on Indian leadership for the social sector. I just graduated, in fact, from that. And there, in my batch, there were a lot of people asking, how do you know it's the right time to get into the social sector? How do you know? And I think it was me telling them all the time that there isn't going to be any right time. Okay, I mean, you're going to decide, and you're going to decide that you need to do it, and you just jump off that cliff, because there is no right time to do these kind of things. It has to be a little bit of craziness. I mean, it's not very well planned things. And my whole life has been like that. It's funny, but people plan when they're going to get married, when they're going to have children. I actually didn't plan anything. Things happened because you just go with the flow at times, right? So I would still say that from that angle, it's not going to be any different. I have to find the right time and energy when I'm just going to let go, and it's going to happen. But I would probably be a little, and that's what I'm doing right now, I would probably be a little more mindful of the kind of people I start the journey with, and do a little more, because if I do something now, I would want it to be a little more long lasting, right? So it's not something that I just want to get in and, come out of, right? So a little more planning, and a little more, mindful about, if I have any co-founders, who they would be and what they bring to the table and what I bring to the table. Some of that would be a little different, to make sure that I'm building something where our strategies or thought processes are aligned for a longer time. So yeah, that is something that I really feel can be done better now. I think one of the things that has shaped my life, and I keep seeing it today, and I talk about it so much, is really the parents that I've had. It's really the upbringing that I've had. Number one, there was never anything telling me that you're a girl, you're a boy. There was no gender in the discussion at all, right? So it was something that, and not to say the journey has always been smooth with my parents. It's not at all. Like I said, I was a rebel, and I wanted to leave home, and there were things that I did that maybe I shouldn't have done, and all that, right? But the whole thing about that, you have to stand on your 2 feet, you have to make an earn a living, and you have to be a good human being. I think these were the 3 principles that guided my life throughout, right? And so there was no question of this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, these are the norms you should follow. And to be very honest, even when I was in TI and people were setting up these diversity initiatives and things like that, initially, and I'll be very honest, that I had a little trouble identifying with why it's required, because I didn't come from that kind of a background. Not only me, even the friends that I had, and this is probably a Kolkata thing, or that particular generation, none of my friends had that kind of issue at all. I mean, everyone was doing whatever they wanted to do, right? So, but then I realized that obviously the world is not the same, and I went into a little more depth of what the whole social norms are, what the how people are treated, how you really see discrimination, because these things are something that I really feel passionate about, but it's just that I had not faced it, as such. Of course, there were small things, like when I was studying engineering, I still remember, you used to walk with that tea that you had, right? I mean, for design class, and there was some, yeah, she's a girl and she's studying engineering. So there were passing comments all the time, right? I mean, but I knew how to brush them off. It was like, yeah, okay. I mean, how is that affecting me? So definitely, the kind of support from my grandmother and from my parents has been just amazing. So I would say everything, the way I am today, is a culmination of what their thought process is. And another thing that I am is, actually, I'm like a sponge. For me, every single interaction, I'm talking with you, I talk with my friends, every single interaction is a learning for me, right? So I try to absorb, things that I feel are not there in me, that I can pick from someone else. And that has always been the case, from all around. In terms of my own family, like my husband and I have two boys, right? And my elder son is in 12th grade right now. Younger one is in 7th. And I think one of the things that I really feel happy about is when my elder son, he came to me and said, Mom, I think I'm a big feminist. And nothing could make me happier, right? Because I think they have seen me no different from their father. So, in that sense, my husband has, also done pick up drop duties or taking care of, because I have traveled like crazy, for work. I have actually traveled like crazy. And I have been able to do so because kids have been able to stay alone. I mean, my husband has taken care of them. So I never, lose sight of the fact that, yes, uh, I do have a extremely supportive environment in that sense. But like I said, it's not supportive in the sense of that, you're doing this, I'll take care of. It's nothing like that. Okay, you're on your journey, you need to do this. And hence, it's not that I'm going to drop you to the airport or pick you up from the airport. That has never happened. That has never happened. But yes, I will be there. So the whole freedom, I think, in my sense, the freedom to be able to take your own decisions, be accountable for them, have responsibility, is something that I have been brought up with. And thankfully, I have been able to keep through. And hopefully, I have been able to pass on to my sons as well. I think everyone says, you have daughters and you bring them up to be independent, strong, etc. But you need sons who can also, really respect that. To see that real equality also has to come from the males in the society, and that is something that I strongly, strongly, strongly feel about. Because unless you change that, you change hajar, women, nothing is going to change, right? The needle is not going to move. So yeah, I think, that has been. Be a little more confident. Don't, have so much self-doubt. I think there are far too many people externally who have told me that, you are great, you are capable. But I've always doubted myself. I still do. And so a little more confidence probably helps you take the right decisions, right? I think that is definitely what I would say. And I feel this younger generation, when I see, a lot of young women, my God, I mean, they like really know what they want to do. They're so uber confident, and I am nowhere close to that. So I think, that would be my advice to my young self, at least. So one thing that, so like I said, I have been trying to help in every possible way I can. I think that is something that I mean, that's my nature, and that is what I love doing and I try to do. But specifically for women in technology, a couple of things anywhere that I have been, so one of the things that I would like to mention, for example, in MediaTek, the CPU processor design that we did, actually all of the major leads of the processor design were all women, and were all women in various stages of their life. one of them had just had a baby. One of them was taking care of her very ill mother. One of them was just married. So I had like women in all stages of their lives, but in very critical roles as leads, for that processor design. So to be able to support them and make them see that they can dream and they can do and not be worried about, all the other peripheral noise, I think is something that I feel proud of. And I continuously, so in our company or even outside, at any drop of a hat, actually, I'm willing to, talk about my journey. Hopefully that inspires a lot of folks. Anyone who comes to me, for mentoring, I try to mentor them and guide them to actually see how they can balance their work and life a little differently. So everyone asks me, in that sense, how do you balance it all? You see, because I have a lot of interests other than work, like a lot of other interests, that I have actually several pets. I have one dog, 2 cats at home, 1 turtle, 8 stray cats that I'm taking care of today, 10 stray dogs that I'm taking care of, who every single one of them has a name, and I go and feed and I take care of. So it's like, whoever comes to me, I kind of take, try to take care of them. So everyone thinks I have this magic formula, like, my garden is my love, So, but my whole point is, I think it's not about that. It is about prioritizing things, right? It is about prioritizing what you want to do at what point in time. So even in all our lives, and that is what I keep telling women, that it's okay to make a choice. If you say that you want to take care of your baby, even if you want to take 6 months off, that's a choice you are making, and you put that priority, right? At that time, your work is going to be a lesser priority, which is fine. When work is going to be higher priority, do your work, right? At that time, don't make excuses for anything else. So it is really about prioritization and being clear about what you want to do. So I think this is something that I try to work with a lot of women on, right? That there is no perfect, there is nothing called work-life balance. You have to make a choice, and you have to be comfortable with the choice that you're making. So in our company also, I started this whole thing of women in tech, where having women come together and not talking about their problems, but really talking about their stories in terms of, what they have accomplished, what it has taken to navigate, the corporate world, and, be as successful as they are today, and share this. So we've had sessions on them. I have been on the chair of, so there is a women's technology conference that, a couple of my ex-colleagues started in Bangalore. It's an IEEE conference called WinTechOn. So I have been on the chair of it. I heavily support that. So that is what I have been doing. Honestly speaking, I would like to do more, and I'm trying to find avenues in terms of how beyond my immediate circle, how I can, go and talk to others, or go and help mentor, bring up others. That is something that I'm really looking for. And that was one of the purposes of doing this whole ILSS course, and trying to find my way in terms of how I can pay it forward further. In terms of sustainable living, like I mentioned, I love the environment. So on my last birthday, my sister actually wrote a poem for me, that there's no one we know as much as you, who loves nature and the environment so much. So even when the caterpillars are, infesting my whole Madhumalati tree, I'm like, but they are so beautiful. How can I spray them and kill them, right? I mean, they are part of the ecosystem. There was a scorpion walking in the middle of the road, and everyone was like, you should kill it. It was a huge scorpion. And I was busy trying to see, how it's going. I'm seeing a scorpion is such a big thing. So I'm a little mad in that sense, but I try to be as sustainable as I can to keep this environment and this biodiversity that we're losing every single day, to at least increase it. So my whole garden, I almost don't let anything be killed, So even, there were snakes who came into my garden, and everyone was like, that's a snake, and you laugh at this, but I actually talked to the snake and I said that, why don't you go away? Everyone is scared of you, right? So I do my own composting. I mean, all those things, hopefully a lot of people do. So I don't want to talk about that. But in terms of seeing how we can really reduce, recycle, reuse. So every year I try to give up one thing. Try to give up one thing. So I used to use deo sprays, which earlier I just gave that up. I was like, okay, that is one thing that comes in a plastic thing, and I will just not use it, right? Then, so there's, these are some of the things that I just try to do. I really try to, I carry a bag with me wherever I go. I carry my own bottle. I mean, those are things hopefully has become the norm, and so I don't want to really talk about it. But I think in terms of sustainability, I love my environment. I really love nature and I love my environment. And if you love something, you will try to take care of it, right? So it really goes towards that. So most recently, I also helped in, I'm getting involved in a lot of lake rejuvenation projects as well. So we helped, completely rejuvenate a lake that was almost non-existent. So I try to get involved in all these kind of activities. I don't have one particular example, sorry, but it's a mishmash of all these things.